Okay, everybody, good afternoon. My name is Ian Harding. I work for ABB. I'd like to thank Jersey for giving us the opportunity here today to have a discussion and a brief introduction to KNX. Let me see, there's 26 people online. There's another 10, I think, trying to get in. But I think there's another one now. But we're settling in now, so I think we can start more or less. I've worked in KNX and with ABB for many years now, and I'm a certified KNX tutor. So I've been doing these presentations for many a year, and I'd just like to share with you some history, some brief information on KNX and the KNX Association. This is hopefully the start of a number of these webinars, and as each case goes along, we can try and get a bit more depth into each discussion as we go through. But for the first one now, I'm going to briefly show you an introduction to KNX, a bit about the KNX history. I'll also want to tell you about the KNX philosophy and interoperability. And indeed, we'll show some good project examples that we have here in Australia. There's many projects I've worked on in Australia, and very successfully in the most case. Sure, we all get problems, but you know, things work and we get along with it, and everybody's happy at the end. Main thing is we keep our customers happy at the end of the day and provide solutions that they're looking for. So what and who is KNX? Where did KNX come from and how did it originate? Well, KNX is sort of like it's like the Swiss Army knife for your house or your building. We have multiple devices from multiple manufacturers that all tie together. Ultimately, what the end user wants is comfort and versatility in their house. They want the building to do what they want it to do and when they want it to do it. They don't want any problems. They don't like any issues in their house. You can imagine how much of a nuisance it is if you have problems at home, and you will always get complaints from somebody in the house if the internet is out. So the same thing happens with lighting, with heating, with ventilation, with blinds, all the sort of stuff that KNX can do in your house. The automation of a house generally doesn't have to be too difficult. People always come along to me and they say, Ian, but it's so hard to do, it's so difficult. It's not. If you use KNX and you just learn a few simple steps, you can work along and you can provide quite elegant solutions for any of your customers. It really, really is a simple system to use. The KNX organization itself is based in Brussels. There are, as you can see from this slide, at this stage, there's 495 members of the KNX organization. These are manufacturers manufacturing all different products. And all these products are guaranteed to work together because of what we call KNX interoperability. Because of the fact that every product that's developed must be certified by the KNX organization before it can be certified for sale into the market. So you will see that on all KNX products, there's a KNX badge stamped on each product. And that's proof that the product was certified by the KNX organization. Us as manufacturers have to go through a lengthy process to make sure all the specifications are met, to guarantee that we can work with each other. I have the KNX webpage here, www.knx.org. If you have time later, you can have a look in there and see what's in there, but there's plenty of information in there. You can see all of what you need, including objectives, including goals, including how the organization itself is set up. There's lots and lots of information in there. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but if you need anything and anything is of interest, you can go in there and have a look anytime you need to. We also have an Australia KNX organization, which is knx.org.au. And we are one of the members of that. We have set up this page as a local page with some local information. You can also get some training information, some interesting project information. It's a bit of work to try and keep this updated, but from time to time we have a person that updates this page and updates news and all information, and pretty regularly the training section of it is kept up to date. So if you're looking for local information, try in here. If there's nothing in here, you can always try the knx.org website itself. There's plenty of information available. We're all used to diving through web pages these days, but certainly you can find anything you want. And always, if you can't find it, just ask. One of us will know where to find it. The KNX history, well, back a long time ago, in 1997, there were 3 major bus associations in Europe. You had Battibus, which was mainly driven by Schneider in France. They developed this as their own system, their own go-it-alone bespoke system, and it was very popular in France. After that, you had the EIBA, which is the European Installation Bus Association, which was built and most successful in the German-speaking countries. You had Germany, Austria, Switzerland, probably a bit of Holland in there as well. And they came up with this system, the EIB, the European Installation Bus, which is really what all of KNX is based on. They developed the commissioning tool at the time that was called ETS, which is the Engineering Tool Software. And you'll be able to see this and download this if you require it off the KNX website. The third important association at the time was the EHSA, the European Home Systems Automation. This was very popular among white good manufacturers. And they were releasing washing machines, they were releasing dishwashers, all these sort of products were being released at the time. And a lot of integration was made to enable these devices to talk to each other. So these 3 organizations really were battling out in Europe. You can imagine the size of the European market. So everybody wanted a big share of that market, and they were all fighting it out. The most important one for us is the European Installation Bus Association. This was founded on the 8th of May, 1990 in Belgium. And this is the forerunner of the KNX organization. Everything is based off this system. A lot of the technology that's used in KNX now is based on the concept of the European Installation Bus. And as I said previously, the EIB tool software at the time was ETS. It was a very, very early version. ETS 2 was the first one I remember. We're currently on ETS 5. In 1997, they started the convergence of 3 organizations. And you can see the main ideas of what they were trying to do. They were trying to merge these 3 institutions together with an idea of, let's make one system that we can all work on, that we can all work together, rather than everybody fighting each other, coming up with different systems and splitting the market left, right, and center. All the major manufacturers spending huge amounts of money on developing their own systems. They all decided to converge, come together, and they founded the KNX Association, or what it was previously called the CONEX Association in Brussels in 1999, with 9 founding members, and I believe ABB was one of those. So we've been in the KNX, CONEX, EIB business a long time at this stage. Currently, the KNX Association is now made up of 495 members. You can go onto the KNX website and you can see each of these manufacturers. They've all registered with the KNX organization. They all submit products. They all create different products. And because of this, as I said, there is I'm just going to close the text there. There's a lot flying through. There is interoperability guaranteed between all the devices. I can take any of those products, I can put any manufacturer's products onto a KNX network, and they'll simply and easily talk to each other. It's a wonder for talking. ABB's history through the years, we started in 1983 with our first bus system called the Sigma iBus system. That's actually before my time, believe it or not. I don't even remember that. In 1990, we were one of the founding members of the EIB Association. And I do remember this. This is sort of within my history, sad to say. From then, we have always been heavily involved with the KNX Association. And today, we are one of the largest manufacturers, one of the widest product portfolios available. This year actually is the 30th anniversary of the KNX organization. They count back to when the EIB was first founded back in 1990. So unfortunately, due to the issues that are going on around the world at the moment, there was due to be a big fanfare and a big party in Frankfurt this year, but that's all been postponed. However, I'm sure if you have a look on their webpage, they are rolling things out through the year. and there is a lot of information going about their 30th birthday. It's quite interesting, some of it. The KNX philosophy. The KNX philosophy came from an idea of building an installation bus providing a cost-effective solution. And the whole idea was how many different products and how many different buildings and how much can we include in this? When this was developed, the standard that was developed was IEC 14543. That standard was developed initially in Europe, obviously as an IEC standard, and has been adopted globally through all different countries around the world at this stage. In 2018, after probably 3 or 4 years' work, we managed to get it adopted as a technical specification with Standards Australia and Standards New Zealand. We couldn't quite get it adopted as a standard, although there is an ongoing path with the Standards Australia to directly integrate all IEC standards. They would only go as far as a technical specification, but the hope is in the next couple of years, we can turn that technical specification into a full Standards Australia standard. As I said, KNX is controlled by the KNX Association in Europe. So the technology itself is independent of all manufacturers. No matter what else those manufacturers wish to do, we are pegged by the controls that the KNX Association has in Brussels. It means that we don't go out and develop anything for our product that is different to anything that anybody else can develop. All products are interoperable and will all work together. All the products, when we make a new product, everything is sent to the KNX Association for certification. They will confirm that it complies to the electrical regulations. It complies to all the standards for coding and software. And only then, once we have registered it with the association and certified it, can we sell it as a KNX certified product. And it's an important point for KNX because it means that you, as installers and integrators, have a huge and varied choice of products throughout the market, and you're guaranteed that they will all work together on the one KNX bus. And this has meant that the future-proofing of all installations is highly important because I have many, many installations here, even in Australia, that are many years old. I'm based in Melbourne here, and even last year I had a lady call me to tell me she had a problem with some of her ABB stuff in her switchboard. And I was able to establish that it was quite an old relay that was installed in the switchboard. I think it was about 10 or 12 years old. She'd been in the house for 8 years, had never touched the system. And we were able to just directly replace that for her. And hey-ho, off she went again and was none the wiser. It was it was an easy swap out for one of our integrators here. The whole system is backwards. I mean, backwards compatibility is such a huge selling point that no matter when a person installs, we can always later go back, change the installation, add to the installation. And it's that guarantee that helps building owners with their choices in picking KNX as a good product. As I said, there are over 8,000 products now available. Us as ABB, probably one of the broadest product catalogs. We cover everything from lines to relays to dimmers to DALI controllers to presence detectors. We have a huge range. But of course, there are many different manufacturers. There's a lot of smaller manufacturers just making software interfaces. There's a lot of manufacturers focusing on switches. So there's many, many different guys out there, and there's many, many different options available. As ABB, we have all of our information available on the web, as you'd expect. All of our information can be found at www.abb.com/KNX. It'll bring you to our home product page. If you have a look in there, you'll be able to get any information on any of our KNX products. There's product catalogs, there's drawings, there's circuit diagrams, there's everything you need, DWG files, there's training, anything you need is in here. And we release this and keep this updated all the time. The product catalog is available online and certainly a worthwhile download. As a PDF, you can get that onto your laptop or iPad, whatever you want. And it has all of our products in it. There's handy guides in it. There's selection tables in it. It shows all of our switches. It shows all of our devices. It really is a handy guide. And I would say to anybody, go into our page and download the product catalog. It's worth having. It's probably updated twice a year. So I always check probably once or twice a year just to check that I have the latest version with all the new products into it. Certainly within our product range, we have products for energy consumption, switching and dimming, DALI, shutters, blinds, heating, cooling, ventilation, and room management. Yeah. Also in our product range, we have the usual stuff. We have power supplies, binary inputs, analog inputs, weather sensors, presence detectors, logic and time control, which enables quite complicated functionality. There's certainly a lot of people do sunset scenes, and they do all sorts of morning scenes, they do breakfast scenes, and all the logic enables all sorts of stuff to be done. We've room and temperature control, we've security devices, and we've hotel access control devices, which are very handy as well. And the KNX bus, if you don't know, the KNX is all on one cable. All KNX devices have a black and a red connector on the front of it. And the minimum connection you need on any KNX installation is just to connect that black and red cable. The yellow and white cable is used in some instances where some devices may need an extra power supply. They may need an extra 12 volts or 24 volts. And that's just in the cable itself. You have some KNX screens will have the communication bus on the black and red cores, and maybe 24 volt DC just to power the screen. And the transmission speed is 9,600 bits a second. It's a relatively slow bus, but it doesn't need to be any faster. We're turning lights on and off. We're not doing any high-speed operations, so everything is generally fine. And what's good about that is that at those low speeds, the bus is fairly robust. When you get interference from high-speed switching, you get interference from PCs on a network with sending spikes down a power line, or any of those sort of things, they generally don't be seen on a KNX network because the bus is slow. The bus access method is CSMACA, Carrier Sense Multiple Access Collision Avoidance. In essence, when a KNX device wants to send a telegram on the bus, it listens to the bus for a couple of milliseconds before it sends a message onto the bus. If somebody else is broadcasting, it will stop. If the bus is clear, it will broadcast its message. It's as simple as that. The application programs and addresses are held in an EEPROM on the bus devices. That's very important and worthwhile knowing. A lot of people, when they're programming KNX installations, might do it on the kitchen table of an EV, might do it in the office, might do it in the home office. They will program these devices. They will program replacements. And people can do this. They'll program it at home. They can send it to site. The installer can install it, power it up, and the device works perfectly and will do what's expected of it. This is just a quick diagram of a typical KNX installation. You can see the KNX network will go to all the KNX devices that it needs to. You can see we have switches, we have relays, we have dimmers. The three devices on the bottom really are those devices that will be mounted in the switchboard. Then we're just out to switches and thermostats and presence detectors and whatever you have throughout the network. We will also have 240 volts cables or 230 volts linked from the switchboard around to all the power users throughout the network. KNX and interoperability. I don't know about you guys, but I've certainly been on jobs in my past life as a PLC and DCS programmer where I arrive to a site and we've 3 or 4 different manufacturers and everybody tells you their stuff is working properly and everybody swears that everything is fine, and yet it's just not working. The end customer gets frustrated. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of money. It's hard, and it just eats man hours trying to get things working in some conventional installations. It's for me, I have found over the years that it just chews up time on site. Everybody swears they're right, and you have to then go step by step through the whole system to prove who is wrong or to prove what is wrong throughout the network. In a KNX installation, The ease of installation means that all devices are installed on the one bus. So once they're installed on the one bus, they can physically talk to each other. I was involved in a job a few years back in a school where there was two installers working on the project. One installer was working on the lighting system, and the other installer was working on the blind system. So they sat down, they met, and they had a discussion about how the whole system was going to operate. They decided, they designed it properly, and all the system worked on the one bus. Blinds, shutters, relays, everything worked. Lighting worked. They even had projectors in the classrooms and things like that. And because it was all on the one network, it was easy and simple to install and to get working. It just made life so much easier. ETS is as we said, is the software that we use to program KNX. It's a common platform, and again, it's a software tool that comes from the KNX organization. If you have to buy a license, if you're going to program KNX, you need to buy an ETS license, and you can only buy it from the KNX organization. And it's only by buying it from the KNX organization that you're guaranteed that you'll have the latest updates, that everything will work. I've heard over the years of a number of people will buy cracked or hacked versions coming from China or God knows where they're getting them from. And very often I've seen these guys have awful trouble on site, whereby a bug fix is being released or something like this, and they don't have the bug fix because they haven't got the latest updates, because they have a hacked version. The only place to get it is from the KNX organization online, and I would recommend not buying a hacked version, and always keep it up to date. You need to make sure that it's always up to date. I mean, it's very important, as with any software, to make sure that things are running smoothly. ETS 5 is the latest version of it. There's just a project window showing certain bits and pieces from KNX. It's to any programmers, that's simple. It's where they work all day, every day, and they can see their full project there and everything that's involved with their project. Sorry. KNX application areas. Well, KNX is fit for any type of buildings. Certainly throughout the years, I've installed it in many different places. I've done schools, I've done churches, libraries, and we've done hospitals, commercial buildings, all types of commercial buildings, you name it, we've been into them. We've done houses, we've done high-end residential, we've done mid-sized residential, we've done apartments. It puts you in control. Whatever you need to do in a building, KNX will have all the devices to enable you to manage that building. Certainly for lighting control, we have local lighting control. Local lighting control might be a switch on the wall, could be a presence detector. We would have group lighting control. I can hit one switch and turn off multiple groups of lights in a building. Central control, I may have a central point in a building whereby all lights are turned off at night when everybody leaves the building. Time controlled, we can have time switches installed that will send messages out onto the network to turn lights on and off at prescribed times. We can have motion controlled. Indeed, most buildings, most office spaces now have presence detectors in them, and the lights are only on when there's somebody in that space. It's very common now for motion control throughout buildings. And event controlled, we might have on sunset, for example, we might turn on some outside security lights, or on alarm, we might turn on the lights. There's various different things we can do with that. In HVAC, we have different versions of HVAC. We have individual room control, we have time control, we have remote control, we control different types of valves. We can talk to the boilers, we can talk to the chillers. We have a full set now of products that can integrate and talk to full HVAC systems in buildings. Blind and shutter control. We can use our blind relays to open garage doors, to protect sunroofs, to control ventilation windows, to control roof windows or awnings. And even if you integrate it with a weather sensor, we can now detect if it's raining. If it's raining, we can close the sunroof. If it's too windy, we can pull the awning back and protect it and make sure there's no damage done. So we have all these sorts of things we can do with KNX now. Full range of application areas. Well, whatever you think you need to do or want to do in a building, generally we can do. We have lighting, heating, blinds, security, energy and load management is becoming certainly more important as time's going on. We're all looking to reduce cost in buildings now, certainly in the commercial space. With the Green Star ratings and things like that, we need to monitor loads and visualize what's happening in a building. We can have central automation, remote control and maintenance is also very important. A lot of people now do their emergency light testing remotely. Don't even need to go into the building to do it. We also have interfaces and presence detection. And as I said, I've certainly worked in nearly all of these building spaces at one time or other, from offices to apartments to hotels to exhibition centres, sports stadiums, museums, schools, banks, airports. You name it, we've been in these buildings, and there's some sort of KNX lighting control. Generally KNX lighting control, but very often now we get shutter control. We might get some HVAC control into a hotel. The central or the local HVAC in your room in your hotel can often be KNX. So there are lots of options and lots of things we can do throughout the world now. KNX and energy efficiency. Yes, we care about the planet. I mean, everybody talks about global warming now, the necessity to use less and less energy. So with KNX and lighting control, there were a number of studies done, and a few slides I have some results from those studies. But over the years, they have done studies on buildings, and they have looked at buildings to see how much energy we can actually save by putting KNX and intelligent lighting control into a building. So just using time switched control, it was found that we could simply save 10% on our energy costs. If we use time control and presence detector, certainly we could get up to 20% of energy. And if we go all the way down to the bottom, using constant brightness control, using daylight harvesting, using dimming lights that are beside a window because the sun is shining in, that can give us up to 50% of savings on our lighting bills. And that's a huge saving, and that's something certainly that in a commercial space, a lot of people are interested in hearing. Certainly with blind control as well, we have up to 13% savings for HVAC. And that comes from, we know Australia is a hot country. We know on a hot sunny day, there's a lot of heat out there trying to get into the building. But if we pull the blinds down, we stop that heat getting into the building. And if the heat doesn't come into the building, we don't have to spend money then cooling it. So certainly looking at blind control as a way of energy efficiency, as a way of saving money on HVAC. And HVAC is probably the biggest expense in most buildings, be it your home bill, be it your home, be it an office, be it a school. HVAC is one of the biggest costs that we all have. Because certainly, yeah, that's the same, sorry. There is a study these studies were done a number of years ago in the University of Bremen, and you can see in this slide, there's two seminar rooms with exactly the same usage patterns, and over time, one was KNX and one wasn't, and they could track the energy usage and the huge difference in energy usage between the rooms. And you can see it's quite an energy saving. Over a number of years, this can certainly be a huge payback to any investors. And it's similar for the lighting energy usage. This is just over 1 month energy. You can see they just looked at two groups of lamps in two rooms, and they just compared to see what was happening in the room. And it's a huge energy saving, and you multiply that out over larger buildings, could have hundreds of these rooms. And certainly for any maintenance guy in a building now, this certainly is an eye-opener to see what he can save in his buildings. KNX projects. We've done multiple large KNX projects throughout Australia. Probably, I don't know, I have some good ones here, but Barangaroo is certainly among one of the biggest ones. The three commercial towers, I know we've done all ABB lighting control into these towers. There's probably close to, I'd imagine, about 10,000 presence detectors being installed, in addition to LCD screens, in addition to switches, in addition to power supplies and IP interfaces, in addition to DALI gateways, DALI controllers, relays, and all that sort of stuff. So you can see these quite large projects. So So we have some quite large projects in Australia ongoing. Here's an example of a building that was done a few years ago in Monash University, the New Horizons building, where they were looking to see what they could do with KNX. They were looking for an alternative. They were looking for better ways of doing things, and KNX was chosen. Interestingly enough, and what's done in a lot of commercial projects now is there's a BACnet interface to the BMS. So KNX can do that no problems. Another interesting project was the Next Data Center in Perth. We've done all the lighting control throughout that building. And interestingly, this project is also emergency lighting control, whereby using a KNX DALI gateway, we can set up an automatic system to do all the emergency light testing. It's very interesting for people to try that, because typically, when you're running emergency light tests, you go in, turn off the breaker and wait for the lights to go out, probably at the weekend. But now we can just let the system go and automatically run a program to go and do this. It's very useful, and it saves a lot of time and energy. 15 Green Square Close in Brisbane was another big project. Certainly there's all the similar stuff with switching, central control, time control, and daylight harvesting. The central automation for central control. It's all fed back to one PC, so the building manager can see what's happening throughout the building at any time. From there, he can initiate his emergency light tests. And we've also interfaced it to BACnet and to other stuff. City West Police Complex in Melbourne. This is quite a big project as well. You can imagine the security in and out of here as well. So we put daylight harvesting, we've got blind control, we've got glare control, we've got visualizations via PCs, and all the interfaces are set up in these projects. 850 Collins Street in Melbourne. This is an early project and is full of presence detectors. So all those big open plan office floors are full of presence detectors. And again, it's fed back to visualizations and operation screens throughout the building. The ANZ Tower in Sydney is quite another big project. ANZ were refurbishing a couple of years ago, and they wanted to do as much as they could into the building. So they've added a lot in there. They've added solar shading. There's a security interface to the whole security system. The aircon is all controlled. There's PV and wind power generation with smart metering. And there's a roof-mounted weather station as well. So that certainly has a big impact on what's happening throughout the building. And it also lets them monitor and look and see what's going on. And they've all sorts of algorithms built in. If it's 30 degrees out, how much they'll cool the building by and all this sorts of stuff. So there's certainly the ability in the software to do as much as you want with it. So as far as my introduction goes, that is, well, there's a lot of information in there. Has anybody got any questions? Not all products are available in all countries, Daniel. In Europe, there are a lot of KNX Wi-Fi devices available, but they use a frequency, the 858 megahertz, that is reserved in Australia and New Zealand for the emergency services. So we can't bring those devices into the country. So at this stage, there's no wireless KNX that we can import. I'm not saying that you can't import it, but we can't import it and we can't sell it to you legally at the moment. No, we're only the manufacturer. We manufacture and sell all the product through to the integrators, to the contractors, whoever's building the project. We don't do any integration on site. We leave that to you guys. That's your job. We all have our positions. Generally, with risk integration through to a security panel is generally via binary inputs and outputs. We have devices there. There are binary inputs and outputs that we can give information to and from security panels. Strangely enough, in Europe, we do have a KNX security panel, a GMA panel. It will sit on the KNX bus and it can contact directly. And we do have KNX certified security devices. However, the issue with these, as with everything else, is, and certainly in the security industry, the trouble is always that getting local certification through each market is very difficult. I don't have a huge demand for them here, so I haven't got them certified here. So anybody generally that does want to interface through to a security system is doing so via binary inputs and outputs. Risco have a KNX module, Peter. Okay, if Risco have a KNX module, that's fine. Just sit a KNX module into the device. It will talk to the KNX network. And I don't know the device, but I'm guessing general sort of information going back between the two devices would be, I can arm the Risco panel from my KNX system. If an alarm is detected, I can turn lights on and off in the building. I can set whatever I want to happen in the building. I know one guy I know in Germany, what he did with his house was he had it interfaced to his alarm system, and what he did when the alarm went off was the lights flashed on and off every second. And I don't know about you, but certainly if I was in a building trying to run out of a building with loads of stuff that I just robbed, having lights flashing on and off in a room that you don't know is going to be very disorienting and will be very hard. So certainly that sort of stuff that they've done. Really, you should talk to the DHS guys, and they would be your first point of contact. And well, hopefully the aim of showing you this brief introduction first to KNX, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks we can do a couple more. Just I'll explain a bit more about network architecture and all that. If you guys are interested, certainly when we're over our current troubles in the world, we will look at running KNX certified training. I'm a tutor and I run training in the ABB office here in Melbourne on behalf of the KNX organization. Once you've done the KNX certified training, you will be listed onto the KNX website as an integrator globally. So everybody globally will be able to see your details. And if somebody locally is looking, they'll be able to look and find you here. The idea then is that you will be able to design and look at projects yourself. I mean, if we're looking at houses, if we're looking at, the first thing we'll always start is the number of switching points, the number of dimming points, number of presence detectors. It's a fairly set routine. There isn't really a lot of things that stand out in most projects, and certainly Nick, with a bit of experience, you'll pick it up very quickly. It's generally not very hard. There are, as I said, there are 400 and we're getting close to 500 manufacturers, I think, nowadays. And many of those manufacturers now are software developers and have apps developed for KNX. They will usually sit some sort of IP device onto a KNX network, and that will be their gateway to talk back through the app. Certainly, if there's interest, I can show a few of those in a later webinar. There's multiple different ways to do it. There's some nice pieces of software out there. There's all different versions. We have one or two options as well. We have apps available. There's different things available, but certainly we can have a look at that later. No, you can't get certified, James, because when you want to do the certified KNX training, we have to go through. I make it into a 4-day process, and this isn't ABB. This is the KNX organization have set that up, and the idea is that they want a minimum standard of people. They don't just want to throw everybody out there into the KNX world, let everybody do it, and then all hell breaks loose. Still, as I always say, you know, there's some installations are good, some installations are bad. You see all types of work, but the minimum idea is that at least everybody is starting off the same point. At least everybody has a basic understanding of how it all works, how it all goes together. And as part of the certified training, you will go through a lot of theory and you will go through a lot of practical work that should give you the skills to go on and develop KNX programming. Certainly, if you want to have a look at more, have a look at the KNX website. There are some training modules on there that at least you can get a start on. And maybe we can have a later discussion as to where you might like to go, what you might like to do. So I just want to sort of, you know, give these short webinars showing bits of information. And certainly if there's other stuff that you guys want me to discuss or further discuss and expand on, let Jersey and the guys know, and certainly they can contact me, and they'll give me more information.
I wanted to summarize. Thank you very much, Ian, for a great start into the KNX webinars. Just for everyone on the call, we'll have, thanks to Ian and thank you to all ABB team, I will have a few more webinars starting on Wednesdays. We'll definitely let everyone interested so far know about the next days and next sessions, topics, agendas, days. So stay tuned. Also, would like to add that this series started with webinars presented by Ian today. We'll continue with KNX, and we'll add Comfort Click KNX Gateway series. Some people were asking how to organize supply and help on different projects. By all means, all people on the call are, I believe, have account with us already with Digital Home Systems. So please contact us in the first instance. Just request a quote from us. We'll answer with the best possible pricing and delivery times. Also, keep in mind that Comfort Click being added later stage to these seminar sessions is a KNX and Z-Wave and Modbus and BACnet and IP hybrid solution to extend fantastic functionality of KNX. You can also add Z-Wave devices for wireless control of devices which you need or can't, or you don't want to use KNX for many different reasons. For example, retrofit some missed items in your design and you quickly have to add something. So there is also a possibility to extend KNX with wireless, reliable, open protocol Z-Wave. On that note, I don't want to take too much time. Thank you very much, Ian, for excellent presentation.
And like I said, Jersey, if there's anything that anybody wants in specific, or if there's anything detailed, otherwise I'll just keep going as I've planned forward. If anybody else wants to suggest anything, I can move in various directions. We're flexible.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ian.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you, everybody.